Hello, I'm Jamie from Shamrock Grow World, and today I'm going to show you my Harbor Freight 6x6 greenhouse. I used the greenhouse from October 27, 2019 to March 29, 2020. The greenhouse was in Texas Zone 8B, so we tend to have mild to cold winters. In this video, I'll show you how to assemble it, the features that I had on the inside of the greenhouse, and I'll show you the teardown process. I bought this greenhouse from Harbor Freight back in October 2019. This is their 6x6 greenhouse by One Stop Gardens. Normally, it costs between $99 and $109, depending on the time of year. I got it for $104 and used a 20% off coupon. Then with shipping costs and taxes, the price came out to about $115. So it's not crazy expensive for an aluminum and polyurethane greenhouse. It's relatively easy to set up. The greenhouse is made up of the following primary parts: the aluminum frame, the back cover, the door cover, the roof cover, and the assembly parts. The greenhouse includes anchors that you can drill into the ground. The only other equipment that you'll need is a hex wrench or a hex drill bit. Just make sure you're not tightening the bolts too tight. The aluminum frame was the easiest part to assemble. Each piece is numbered and the instructions are clear as to what piece goes where. Except for the bottom rails to the frame, everything is held together by tension. It took me less than an hour to assemble it by myself. After you assemble the frame, you'll adjust the spacing of the feet. This process is to ensure that the front, back, and diagonal points of the frame are even. Then you can anchor the frame into the ground. Unfortunately, I didn't do this step because the ground was hard and I was under a time crunch when I assembled the greenhouse. But I also think you can anchor the greenhouse later, especially when the covers are on. The back and door covers each have a zipper dome where you can vent out the greenhouse. Those come in handy when you want to look inside without unzipping the door. Depending on where you position the greenhouse, you can have two openings to air out the greenhouse. And the back and door covers slip onto the frame using straps that go around the corners of the aluminum frame. The roof cover is one piece that makes up the sides of the greenhouse and the roof. The bottom of the roof cover slips over the bottom rails attached to the front and back frames. The bottom of the greenhouse is not quite airtight, so you can either tuck the flaps under bricks or gravel, or put boards along the front and sides of the greenhouse. Once I got to the intricate details of the corners and the tie-down brackets, those were the hardest part to figure out. The instructions weren't really clear about which part goes inside or outside of the leg corners. The large tie-down bracket is the part that goes inside, which is where the metal foot is. But the general instructions of the greenhouse assembly is pretty much self-explanatory, except for a few details. Once you're done assembling the frame and the three covers, you'll tighten the ratchet tie-down straps. This will tighten the roof cover over the back and door covers. Then the greenhouse assembly is done. It took me a few hours to set it up by myself. It took a little longer to add the tables and the plants, but the assembly can easily be done during the day. The greenhouse sits on the east side of the house and gets shaded in the evening, right at around 3:30 p.m. The fence behind it faces north, so the greenhouse is somewhat protected from northern winds. I put a wooden board on the back of the greenhouse to prevent cold wind from blowing under the greenhouse. I also wanted to prevent animals from digging or crawling under the back cover. I put a gap between the greenhouse and two bushes and I cut them away from the greenhouse. I didn't want the sharp wood to poke into it. The greenhouse is in Texas Zone 8B, so we do get cold nights in winter. I believe the lowest range is around 25 degrees. Summers can be hot and have high UV rays. All the fruit trees and seedlings that are in the greenhouse will not tolerate cold temperatures. Some plants will not tolerate below 40 degrees. Now we'll take a look at the internal setup of the greenhouse. A few weeks after assembling the greenhouse, I put a bar across the back. I wanted to use more vertical space, so I rigged some PVC pipes together and put the bar in the back. I hung small plants off of it using a double barrel hitch knot from cheap jute string. On the roof railing, I attached a 5,000 lumen LED shop light to the top. It was on a timer that came on in the morning, afternoon, and evening to create additional light when the greenhouse was shaded. I also mounted 3 clamp lights with aluminum domes to the roof rail. 2 clamp lights had heat bulbs in the front and the back away from contact with the plants. The middle clamp light was a regular light bulb that pointed towards the plants on the table. I tied all the electrical wires of the lights along the aluminum frame. I tied them up with jute string and made sure that they weren't hanging. I also had the 3 lights plugged into a small power strip. That power strip was connected to a 12-outlet power strip. I mounted the large power strip down the length of the bar in the front. I tied it with jute string and hung it so that the water wouldn't drip into the plugs. The power strip was attached to an extension cord that was connected to the house. There are 2 timers, one for the 3 heat lamps and one for the LED shop light. I can turn it on for 24/7, especially if the weather is cloudy and cold. The greenhouse may be at least 10 degrees warmer than the outside temperatures on cloudy days. I can turn the lights on during the morning and evening when the sky is sunny and clear, such as today. The time on the timers really depends on the weather. The cost of powering the greenhouse for each month ranged from $27 to $30. I used a kilowatt meter on the power outlet on the house. I tracked the daily and monthly kilowatt usage and multiplied it with the kilowatt rate for our power company. You can definitely use the horizontal bars inside the greenhouse to hang some plants. I used a double barrel hitch knot to tie the plants to the bars and fill some vertical space. The hanging plants also added weight to the greenhouse. I also had a raised platform made from cinder blocks and a plastic tray for my tall plants. A new addition to the greenhouse was a small 4-tiered rolling cart for my smaller plants. The greenhouse was cramped with plants and storage material, but it kept everything safe. On this day, January 19th, 2020, it's about 84 degrees inside of the greenhouse. It's about 55 degrees outside, and it's windy and sunny. The sun also heats the greenhouse during the day. It's common for the greenhouse to be between 10 and 20 degrees warmer than it is outside. The internal temperature can be higher if it's humid. As you can see, I'm getting new growth from one of my trees. At this point, the trees have been in the greenhouse for 2.5 months. At night, I keep the heat lamps on to prevent the temperatures from lowering in the greenhouse. The greenhouse stays at least 10 degrees warmer, and it has never frozen or got below 40 degrees. It's common that nights in the winter settle in the mid to lower 30s. But the greenhouse was always safe, and I never had to worry about the plants freezing. I took the greenhouse down on March 29th, 2020, after 5 months of use. A few weeks prior, the greenhouse got so warm that it was vented during the day, closed up at night, and the lights were officially unplugged. The week before the teardown, the greenhouse door was completely unzipped. The teardown of the greenhouse was easier and a little faster than assembling it. The time-consuming part was taking the plants out and putting them in their new spots in the sun. I made sure that the covers were brushed off and dried before folding them away. Although it didn't have the box, everything was able to fit in a large storage bag. For fall 2020, I plan to have more grow lights in the greenhouse. I noticed that the covers of the greenhouse dispersed the light on the inside. Some of my plants struggled in the greenhouse because of the inconsistent lighting. I want to use lighting that will benefit the plants better than before and to encourage more growth. I also hope to have solar panels for the greenhouse. Since it costs about $30 a month to power the greenhouse, I want to explore using solar panels. I'll have to figure out the wattage and the electrical setup, but I don't want to rely too much on electricity from the house. The electrical process will take some time. I also plan to use more vertical stands or tables. I may not put the wooden table back in there because the underside of the table was shaded. I plan to have wired tables or shelves so sunlight could go through. I plan to assemble the greenhouse at the beginning of October instead of the end of October. I want to make sure that I don't lose any plants due to early frosts. Last year, when I assembled the greenhouse at the end of October, a hard freeze happened a few days later, which would have killed my plants if they weren't protected. I can't wait to use the greenhouse again. This 6x6 greenhouse is durable and inexpensive and is easy to set up. With a few modifications and customizations, you can have a reliable greenhouse for your cold weather sensitive plants and to start planting seeds in the winter. Results may vary depending on where you are, and you may have to heat the greenhouse at night or during cold days. But here in Texas Zone 8B, where we have mild winters and hot summers, it works amazingly to extend warm, humid weather throughout the winter for tropical fruit trees. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you're interested in seeing videos of the plants in the greenhouse, check out the country update videos from October 27, 2019 to March 29, 2020. Links are in the description. And don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel and ring the notification bell for more videos about exotic fruits, growing exotic fruits, gardening, outdoor crafts, and more. Thank you.